Live coverage on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM and on Facebook at TTT Live Online. We're currently awaiting the arrival of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. The sitting, I understand, has just concluded in the House of Representatives.
Good afternoon to you, members of the media. Thank you very much for coming. I don't propose to keep you too long, but I think it would be unusual if I do not take the opportunity to respond and to clarify to the developments of recent past in Trinidad and Tobago. In the last week or two, I have been warning this country that is the intention of the opposition to create as much mayhem, bacchanal, janjat, and rara in the national population for reasons best known to them. If there was anybody in this country who had any doubt that what I said was not true, today's events in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, where there was a motion seeking to remove the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago from office, would have clarified and proven exactly what I was warning about. Today, the behavior of opposition members, particularly members of the Senate, who form part of the Electoral College, have been nothing short of disgraceful and reprehensible. Ladies and gentlemen, it is interesting that the root of all of this disturbance, which has been exercising the country for the last 3 weeks or more, has to do with some perception on the part of some people that there have been some breach in constitutional arrangements and that it requires to be dealt with by the politicians. What we saw were allegations, speculation, interpretations, misrepresentation, and other similar kinds of shuns. But it started out with an allegation that the work of the Police Service Commission had been interfered with by the Prime Minister, who was supposed to be some high-ranking official who met the President at President House. And we got together with the Chairman of the Police Service Commission and directed the Commission's work. That is what was fed to the public. And of course, if that was so, which was one of the adjectival clauses of those who were proceeding along those lines, if that is so, then the Prime Minister has questions to answer, and one would have expected that today, since that was the basis of all of the upset for the last 3 weeks, what we really should have been experiencing today was a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. Because it is the Prime Minister's conduct which was supposed to have been under question. Because remember, the allegation was that the Prime Minister directed the President what to do, and the President took the Prime Minister's instructions, didn't send something to the Parliament, or probably send it back to the Commission, and the President, and it was being said that the Prime Minister overreached and bullied the President to get the Commission to do certain things. But as the facts began to emerge, the goalpost started to move. The opposition leader started out wanting to see the logbook at President House to determine whether the Prime Minister was anywhere near the building, because that would have been the proof of the allegations that were being made. There was some tripartite meeting at President's House. Her Excellency the President, being drawn into this kind of bacchanal, quite properly directed to the Prime Minister, myself, that is, that there is a problem. That problem was told to me by the President in one of my consultations with her. In treating with the Police Service Commission, it was, and I said this before, it was Her Excellency the President who drew to my attention that we, the country, have a problem, because the subsidiary legislation wherein it is expected that the Police Service Commission will act, it was Her Excellency the President, a former appeal court judge in this country, and an excellent president of Trinidad and Tobago, said to me that the subsidiary legislation is at variance with the Constitution. Meaning, we have a constitutional problem. I don't know whether or not the President told that to the Commission, and I cannot speak to that. I simply spoke to what was said to me and what I know. Immediately, I started hearing and becoming party to information that lawyers were involved in trying to interpret this. The Commission had lawyers, the AG has lawyers, the government has lawyers, they are independent, and the next thing we know, this matter was in the court. In fact, there were other matters in the court before. Very early in the proceedings, matters were in the court. My understanding is that the President raised this matter so that the Attorney General could have the court determine whether her observation is in fact correct. We needed a legal ruling because there were a number of different opinions on the matter. The government was very concerned about this and went as far as to get legal opinion away from the rest of the teams that were legaling around this matter. Eventually the court ruled and confirmed the concern that the President had. And that is as far as I know. That's as far as I would go in the matter. I have no record to tell you about seeing any list, having anybody not being assessed in the list, because that's in the court too, or I gave no instruction to the President as to how to proceed. I could not presume to tell a former appeal court judge how to proceed. I did no such thing. I watched and I waited, and I saw the allegations. And remember, it was the Prime Minister who was supposed to have done this because the Prime Minister wanted something done. This conspiracy theory, the Prime Minister wanted to get rid of the Commissioner of Police, so therefore the Prime Minister constructed and concocted this conspiracy to use as a way of getting rid of the Commissioner of Police. All that was published in this country for days. with the effluxion of time, it was shown that none of this is true. It was all speculation. It was all, maybe it is so. And if it is so, then so and so. That's what it is. This thing went all the way until it focused now. When you couldn't tie the Prime Minister to your suppositions, you then held on to the President. Something happened in President House, which resulted in XYZ. And that something is still speculation. The President responded after the judge ruled by telling the country it is not, and it was not, and it will not be that President House will communicate publicly on the relationship or the communication between the President and anybody who comes to President House. And I hope it stays that way. The President also pointed out her relationship with some list from the Commission, back and forth. The President made statements about her involvement in or around this matter. The fact that the opposition leader is not prepared to believe the President and to therefore call the President a liar has nothing to do with the Prime Minister. It is the opposition leader saying, I don't believe you, you did this and you did that, without being able to say exactly what the President did. This thing morphed to the point where an opposition leader is now moved to putting a motion in the Parliament to impeach the President based on a fishing expedition that the opposition leader expects to take place in the Parliament so as to prove the allegations that have been already disproved, which started this whole thing. So since we could not get information to prove the allegations, let's go to the Parliament and impeach the President. And in that impeachment, there'll be a debate. And all of us, as said by the opposition leader, all 19 of us, will be debating the conduct of the President, and that will extract the kernels of truth. That is what happened in the Parliament today. And that disgraceful conduct you saw in the Parliament today, let me tell you where that came from. This is a copy of the Constitution. And I want you all to bear in mind that at the very start of all of this, it was an issue about the Constitution not being followed. Remember that. The Constitution was not followed, and the Prime Minister was accused, the President was accused, the Service Commission was accused, and others were accused that the Constitution, this sacred document, was not followed. Let me take you to section 36 and permit me a minute of your time to read it for you, for the benefit of those who saw that disgraceful conduct today. Section 36 on page 34 of this Constitution says, procedure for removal from office. And it's talking about the President. The President shall be removed from office where a motion that his, and you can read her there, removal from office should be investigated by a tribunal is proposed in the House of Representatives. So at the very onset, it says for removal of the President from office, it should be a motion should be investigated by a tribunal, and that is proposed in the House. B, the motion with full particulars. The motion should state full particulars, the grounds on which this removal from office is proposed, and is signed by 1/3 of the House. C, the motion is then adopted by a vote of not less than 2/3 of the membership of the House and the Senate assembled together. That is step 3. Step 4, a tribunal consisting of the Chief Justice and 4 other judges appointed by him, being as far as practicable the most senior judges, investigate the complaint and report on the facts to the House of Representatives. He says the Senate and the House assembled together on the summons of the Speaker should consider this report from the tribunal, and the resolution of that report could then now declare whether or not the President is to be removed by a vote of the College. A, B, C, D, E, spelled out in the Constitution step by step. You saw all day today, and you would have heard phrases from opposition members. There are 8 lawyers in that opposition bench, 8 of them inside there as lawyers. You would have heard them today talking about a substantive motion, a substantive motion, and a substantive motion, and giving the impression that the Speaker was doing something wrong. Playing the victim for the whole morning, 3 hours of playing the victim. What they were trying to do was to save face for the opposition leader. An opposition leader who is so incompetent but prepared to sacrifice the country, the Parliament, and all of us in trying to save face. Having run to go and read what somebody wrote for her, because I refuse to believe that a senior counsel who knows the law, who was Attorney General in this country, could have written for herself what she read there as a motion, and then having read the motion told you, the press, that there will be this fire and brimstone debate when she comes to debate this motion in the House. You all remember that? When she spoke about that motion to the press, she spoke about a debate where all her 19 members will be debating. And I'm saying, debating where and how? Because the Constitution specifically says how you go about step by step in seeking to impeach the President. It says that you put a motion, and the motion must have full particulars. That means when she prepared the motion to go to the Speaker, she could have written 200 pages if she wished. She could have quoted every court case that had to do. She could have taken 5 hours to put the motion there. But it is the motion that you put to the Speaker that is going to be put to the House for a vote as to whether a tribunal should be set up. And no amount of jumping up and down by the tall lady and the loud man could change the law in the Constitution. You saw them today jumping up and down to try to prevent the Parliament from proceeding along the lines of the Constitution, and saying, shamelessly saying, in a situation that was started by a requirement to follow the Constitution, saying, well, in this matter of the motion that the opposition leader wrote a 1-page, and then try to go after and expand the motion, even though it's 1 page she put to the House, and is therefore confined to what she put to the Speaker. They're saying, well, the matter is so important, and we came to debate. Let us bypass the constitutional arrangements and have a debate on this matter. What they were asking today for the House to do is to bypass the stepped provisions of the Constitution and have a debate, because the opposition leader promised you, the media, a debate. Turned out that she did not know the law, or she didn't read the law. She didn't put a motion there that had full particulars, and wanted to rectify that by disregarding the Constitution. So it's quite all right, according to them today, to disregard these provisions of the Constitution. But they spend the last 3 weeks surmising and speculating that something dreadful had happened at President's house because somebody, named or unnamed, had not followed the Constitution. You understand? And of course, I, as Prime Minister, and my government, we are being accused of being the worst. I'm a dictator. Democracy has died. It is because they thought democracy died. All of them come in the black suit today to bury democracy and bury the country today. Because democracy had died. Let me ask you all something. All of you members of the media. There are 6 service commissions in this country. 6. Let me read them out for you. The Judicial and Legal Services Commission. That's 1. Then there are 3 service commissions that deal with, under the Public Service Commission, the Civil Service. Public Service Commission deals with the Civil Service, the Fire Service, and the Prison Service. That's 4 of them. 5, the Police Service Commission. And 6, the Teaching Service Commission. These are the independent commissions in Trinidad and Tobago. I have led a government in this country for 6 years. I have been Prime Minister for 6 years. Except for this Kankatang that has just been created by the opposition and friends of theirs. Do you know of a single instance in the 6-year life of this government, 2 administrations? 5 years first, and we just finished 1 year of the second term. Do you know of a single instance, can you point to a single instance where the government that I lead had a single issue with anybody in any of those 5 other commissions? Tell me. With all this dictatorship they're talking about and the government abusing service commissions, do you know of a single instance where there was a government member, government minister or prime minister who had an issue of any kind with the Teaching Service Commission, with the Prison Service, the Fire Service, the Civil Service, or the Judicial and Legal Service Commission? So clearly, they couldn't be talking about Trinidad and Tobago. And interestingly enough, the one commission where there's an issue is an issue where if the government wanted to get rid of a commissioner of police, all we have to do is wait until his name comes to the parliament and vote no. And if you had any concerns that a government in Trinidad and Tobago, a PNM government, did not have the testicular fortitude to make that kind of vote, you were not here when this government voted yes to a minister from another government who was going through the process as an applicant for a job as Commissioner of Police, and we voted yes. So if we could have voted yes then to make a person a Commissioner of Police, what would have stood in the way of us voting no for the person not to be Commissioner of Police? Why do you think we had to engage in some conspiratorial construct as they are trying to make you believe so as not to have somebody appointed? And of course, the reason why the opposition leader's motion was a bikini one-pager is because she had no facts to put before the speaker. What she had was accusation, not supported by any fact. Because when it was time to write to the speaker, you could say the president did this, the president did that. Where are the pages of evidence to support that allegation? There was none. And that is why the motion was so skimpy. And a skimpy motion going to the speaker is what the mover of the motion will be allowed to read as the motion. You will not be allowed to come there now and start to expand it. And it's not peculiar to that motion. If I want to make a personal explanation in the Parliament, I have to write it and give it to the Speaker. The Speaker has to see it, and when it's approved by the Speaker, when I'm delivering it, I cannot deviate from what I gave the Speaker. A minister making a statement by a minister approved by the Cabinet, that statement has to go to the Speaker before. The Speaker has to see it and approve it, and once it's approved, it is what has been seen and approved that can be read by the minister. You can't go there and ad lib and add and expand. That is parliamentary standing order. So why does the opposition believe that their incompetent leader could have written a one-page motion with nothing to support their allegation and their surmising and their suppositions, and then called together the Electoral College? And then when you realize you've made a fool of yourself talking about debate when there is no provision for a debate, you start to accuse the speaker of beating you down. And then you start to move the goalposts again. All the speaker did, you heard him talking about the guidelines for the whole day. All the speaker did was to reference the context of the Constitution. Tell them what the Constitution says we are going to do today. The speaker did not make up any guidelines. I could tell you, they are giving the impression that the speaker had a discretion. I am saying to you today, the speaker has no discretion with section 36, 1, A, B, C, D, E. It is not discretionary. It is for good reason why the framers of our Constitution put a process here where if an office holder like the president, and there's one other, the Chief Justice, if they are to be removed from office, the procedure requires a tribunal to determine the nature of the allegations and the substance of facts. And when that tribunal goes and gets the facts and puts a report to the Parliament, it is that report of the tribunal that would have separated fact from fiction that the House will deal with and vote upon. And that is for good reason. If they did not put that in place, you would have opened the door for somebody like Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and her batch of colleagues to scandalize these office holders on a weekly basis. Because it means every Friday one of them could have come and put a motion and accuse the President or the Chief Justice of something, and then have a debate on it, and it being a substantive motion according to them, they would have been scandalizing these offices on a daily, weekly basis. The founders of our Constitution protected us from the possibility of a Kamala Prasad Bisesa coming into office, and thank God they have done so, because look at what happened today. Look at what happened today. And of course, I want to ask them, what is it you have not said in the last 3 weeks that you wanted to say in a debate today? What is it? I shudder to think that you would have had something else to say about the president, and you didn't say it, and you were waiting for the cover of Parliament to say it. That's a frightening development, you know. For 3 weeks you have been lambasting the president in the worst possible way, you and your proxies. But you wanted the cover of Parliament to say something more. Something more like what? We went through that with the Chief Justice, you know. The same set of people. They went as far as to try to rope me as Prime Minister in as a witness in the matter. Had I not been alert to their machinations, I could have found myself being roped into that matter, and it went on for about 3 months. It went to court for the court to rule. In the end, good sense prevailed. But they didn't, not say they didn't try. Come back with the same thing now. And as if there is no limit beneath which they will not sink. Look at their behavior today with respect to the naming and trying to shame Senator C. Prasad. Look at that. Where did they ever get it from that we are not individually responsible for our individual conduct, and while we say we are our brother's keepers, it has nothing to do with being held accountable for your brother's behavior? So where did they get it from that the Speaker of the House, who by the office she holds is chairing the Electoral College, had the authority to deny a senator from participating in the Electoral College? These neophytes that are being led in the Parliament by irresponsible people who think that they're senior, saying to young people in the Parliament, get up and shout in the Parliament and shout Mrs. C. Prasad's name. that she should withdraw and she should declare her interest. What in that motion has any reference to Ms. Sipasad? It's a motion on the conduct of the president. Where did Ms. Sipasad's name go inside there? Because you think that there's something that your sister has to answer for, which you have been beating for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and you cannot provide any substantial fact to bolster your motion. You come to the parliament and disgrace the parliament and attempt to disgrace a citizen who is doing public service at the appointment of the President of the Republic. And of course, hear the logic. The reason why they will vote no on the motion is because they were appointed by the President. So if being appointed by the President is reason for you to have to vote no, who appointed the opposition leader? Then she should be voting no too, because the President appointed her. Let me just tell you how serious the motion today is, notwithstanding the conduct of my colleagues in the Parliament. Section 36(2) says, where a motion is adopted as is provided for in subsection 1A to E, which is what I read out earlier on, the President shall cease to perform any of his functions, and the President of the Senate shall temporarily act as President. You know what that means? If they were able to get support for that motion today, it would mean that the President would have had to go out of office today and be replaced by the President of the Senate. So this is no joke motion. And when you see them during the vote behaving like that, it was a motion which could have had the effect of putting the President out of office this evening. It was no motion for a debate on a fishing expedition and we had a good time and then we go home and say, boy, you talk well. It was to remove the President from office today had the vote gone in their favor. And it's that level of seriousness that you saw the level of skylarking that took place there. The illogic, the absolute incompetence of the leadership of the opposition. If you wanted to make all this case against the President, you had to put it in the motion. If you have all this evidence of misbehavior on the part of the President, it should have been recorded in the motion. And what is worse is that having sent the motion to every member of Parliament in the lower house and the upper house, saying that this is the motion that has been filed, these are the facts concerning the President, you are required to come to Parliament and be assembled to vote on this motion. You had opposition members inside there making a whole sort of fuss about they don't know what they're voting on. If you got a document from the Parliament and you didn't read it, whose fault is that? If you did not become aware as to what the motion contains, whose fault is that? The Constitution makes that assumption that you will be so notified what the motion says. And you, as a parliamentarian, you live in this country, if a motion is being moved to remove the President today from office, it assumes that you will know what is going on and you have the motion in your hand. But you're coming and wasting time in Parliament trying to play the victim, jumping up and down and trying to scream. And I mean, the behavior of Khadija Amin and Laida and Nakid and these people today have disgraced our country. There's one word to describe what happened today, and it's disgraceful. But I'm not surprised. It is not the first time that this opposition leader, this person, has led people to disgrace this country. And from where I sit, and from where I stand, this is my country. And all I can say to them, they are a group of disgraceful people, unfit and unworthy of public office. I warned you all that today would have been not a red letter day, not a black day. Today would have been a very unique day in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, when all else fails in the political arena, attack the president, attack the president's family, attack the president's school, attack the senator, attack the attorney general, and come right down to an independent senator being the subject of attack in the Parliament chamber in a matter that does not make reference or acknowledge her. Suppose the speaker go and take it upon herself, put God out her thoughts, to go and say, you can't sit in this house. The question is, where does she get that authority from? Where does the speaker get the authority from to tell a member of the Senate, you can't sit in this house as a member of the Electoral College, when the Constitution says that that person must sit there? I don't want to say any more on this matter. As far as I'm concerned, this matter was a very, very unpleasant experience. Some people hoped that it would have resulted in resignations and collapse and whatever. I think it should really be an eye-opener for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because we are the government and you see what the alternative is. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. Nothing has happened today to have improved the circumstance of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing. It was a bad origin. It was a bad journey. And it was a bad outcome. Because there are people who believe that there's no limit to their political ambition, and that there's nothing that they will not do in furtherance of that ambition. You heard them talking about dignity. Very, very frequently today they talk about dignity. Using the word dignity and behaving in the most undignified manner in the same sentence. We will not help today. So the answer to your question is that I don't think it will help. And, you know, let me just say something here. Because people are on different sides of the political divide does not necessarily mean that you are disagreeable to one another. I have been in this house for a long time. I've said this before. I have been very aggressively politically opposed to people who I currently regard as my friends. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same is happening with this batch of people who are being led down this road. I served opposite Basil Pandey for years. Sometimes I'm in government, he's in the opposition. Sometimes I'm in opposition, he's in government. I cannot say that I've had this experience with Basil Pandey. When I was a backbencher in the PNM, only yesterday I was telling somebody, when I was a backbencher in the PNM and my own colleagues wouldn't come and talk to me in the tea room, it was Kelvin Ramnath who used to come and sit down with me. When I go on the golf course now, and I meet Selby Wilson and Anthony Smart, former NAR ministers of government, we cross political swords. But I regard them as friends, respectable citizens, patriotic citizens. We took part in making law in this country. We argued over, we made points of views. Yeah? That's how it used to be. I sat in TTT with a debate with Hochoi Charles. We had a ding-dong battle. When the program was over, I had to drop him down to the hall lane to go to the hotel. I should have made him walk. But that's how it used to be. I don't know where this hatred and this poison comes from, and it's all led by an opposition leader who had 29 seats in our parliament, squandered the opportunity, and is desperate, will do anything. Look at what has happened here. And believe that by telling you that something happened in President's house. What is something? You've heard from me, you've heard from the president. If you don't have a contrary view to list in your motion, what you come into the parliament to tell the country? That you're vexed? You've been vexed for a long time. But it requires facts. It requires a foundation. It requires confirmation. It can't be that it appears so. How could you go on a fishing expedition in the parliament to impeach the president because it appears so? And then you could manage to have a handful of people who you appointed to come into the parliament and behave in that way, hoping that that will advance. But notice, all of it was to play the victim. Play the victim. You saw one of them accusing the speaker of keeping her hand on some button that shuts off the system. Now, somebody outside hearing that would believe it. But we all know the electronics are very sensitive there. If you keep banging on your desk, you could loosen the connections. But play the victim. So when you couldn't get the Prime Minister, and you can't get the President, you try for the Speaker. And when you don't get the Speaker, you try for Mr. Prasad. That's your position. I think the Speaker did an outstanding job in the face of serious provocation. What they were aiming to do was to get the Speaker to cause them to walk out of the Parliament. They were needling the Speaker, hoping that their disconduct will rise to a level where she had to ask one of them to leave the chamber. And had she done that, they will all then play the victim and walk out to give life to the allegation that they can't speak in the House. That's what they're doing, trying to play the victim. They were trying to kill their own motion, having made a mess of writing the motion. The opposition leader wanted the motion to end by, in some dramatic way, with some kind of walkout, and have all her, notice today I'm not saying him, sir, having all her colleagues provoke the Speaker, hoping that that provocation will result in one or more of them being asked to leave the chamber. Today they were totally disrespectful to the Speaker on numerous occasions. And I'm sure speakers who served in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, seeing that today, would tell you, the members of the media, that they would not have tolerated that from anybody in their time. But they wanted that. They wanted the Speaker to put them out of the House today. One of them, and then they all walked out and then say they put a motion to impeach the president. And what? Some of them said what? The Prime Minister is hiding behind the Speaker's coattail. This Prime Minister is hiding behind no jacket, no coattail. I said for 6 years I ran this country. They never had it within them to bring a vote of no confidence in the Parliament. They want so much of debate. They want to debate, they want to debate, they want to debate. Where is the vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister or the government that you say is so bad? How many times you hear them saying it's the worst government ever in the history of the country, but you never brought a motion of no confidence in the Parliament? But you're going after the Speaker, who is not there to defend herself. And it's for good reason why our framers of our Constitution wrote these step by step. Because the office of President and the office of the Chief Justice, if there is to be any separation of powers, it's spelled out here in this Constitution. So you hear them talking about the separation of powers have been breached. But they want to behave the way they want to behave to these offices. The only arm that is not doing that is the government. This government does not interfere in service commissions. The government does not direct the president. The government does not interfere in the judiciary. At a personal level, I could tell you my personal business. I have a case in the courthouse. It lasted about 10 years before the matter was concluded. 4 years or so ago. It's an appeal. I'm in line waiting to hear what the appeal says. I don't lift a finger to interfere with the process. But all of a sudden, the conversation coming from the opposition that Trinidad and Tobago, the democracy is dead. Eh? I don't want to go into a history of their record because I think you know it. I think you know it. But incidentally, I must tell you, one of the reasons why the opposition behaves like that with these accusations, these unfounded accusations, is because they genuinely believe that we are conducting business the way they conducted it. This thing about I believe so and something happened there, I sure something happened there, that is coming straight out of Section 34. That is what they did. You may recall when they pulled the Section 34 stunt on the country from the cabinet, I, as opposition leader, led a march of 25,000 people from downtown Port of Spain up to President House. The acting president was there at the time. One of the requests I made to him when I saw him was to go to the cabinet and find out how Section 34 moved from the cabinet to proclamation and how that functioned, because there are steps to be taken for that to happen. That gentleman went, or so he said, but he replied to me saying that he has checked and he found nothing unusual had happened. That was the answer I got. It was only when we came into government and we had an Attorney General appointed by the PNM and we had access to the cabinet records, it is only then that we saw exactly what happened with Section 34. And then we understood that they had lied to the country straight across from the cabinet to President's House with respect to Section 34. So that being their record, they think the same thing is happening now. So when they tell you, I think so, I believe so, it looks so, it smells so, they genuinely believe so. And it is that which caused them to try to have to prove it and come to this sorry day where we have to go through this painful experience of an attempt at an impeachment of the president and this disgraceful conduct of members of parliament in such a solemn motion.
Prime Minister, with all this that came out of this PSC issue, one of the things that was raised was the need for constitutional reform. What is your position on that and how do you get to that position?
Well, you better hope that that is not the lifeblood of this country. Otherwise, you're dead. Because these people are never going to agree to reforming anything. They are agreeing to nothing. Don't you all realize that? You think we go and decide now that we want to reform the Constitution and to get support from this opposition to do what? Look at their behavior in all other matters. Look at their behavior in all the other matters, and you tell me if in that pattern of behavior you see them putting the country's interest first to reform any constitution.
Do you believe there's a need for it?
Of course there's a need. Of course there's a need. We can reform our constitution for significant improvement in very many areas, but a simple reform like local government reform is before the parliament now. Local government reform is before the parliament now. Do you expect them to support it? Do you think they will support it? They have already signaled that they will not support it. Would you believe in 2013? No, it was after that. It was the last local government election. We, as part of the advancement of local government, we promised to move to making Diego Martin a borough and Siparia. That was a promise made by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to aim towards the improvement of the management of these districts. Both corporations acting independently as corporations, pass motions in their corporations accepting that we're going to do that. Would you believe that this group of people have gone down to Siparia and they are now getting the Siparia Corporation to go back on its vote? A vote taken in the corporation by a corporation led by the UNC, voted for borough status for Siparia, have now decided to resile from that, to backtrack from that, because as far as they're concerned, the borough of Siparia will become a PNM nest in siparia, so therefore borough status must not be had. But of course, I'm not surprised. But it will take a motion in the corporation to change the motion that has already gone there a long time ago. And I'm waiting to see if the corporation will pass a motion cancelling the one they passed before and say they don't want borough status. That is what's going on in this country.
I have one more question. Slightly off topic, but in the same vein. The President in her announcement said that she received the letter and she gave it back.
I cannot speak to that. Contrary to what you have heard, I have not been involved in the President's relationship with the Commission. So if the President is saying that, you have to ask the President or the Commission, and you have to then either say the President is speaking the truth or the President is lying. Those are the options you have. And they are clear to anybody who is reasonable. To put that to me is to ask me to speculate and surmise.
No, I wasn't touching on that as well as the preamble, the information. She said she got the information, she gave it back, and the process wasn't completed. Does that mean that the new PSC can pick up on the old one?
I am not going to respond to that, because that will be interpreted as though I am giving instructions to the new commission. I have heard the opposition leader who is hell-bent that they should be given no instructions, they shouldn't be given any information concerning their business. But he's saying that the process must start over. In one breath, you're saying that the commission must be left to do exactly as it wants to do, with nobody telling them anything and no information coming from anywhere else. But then it's quite all right to say it must start over. I'm not making any comment on that, because I know that comment will be viewed as a position that I am signaling to the commission, and I have no position, I have no horse in the race. I have no horse in the race. A commission will function as an independent decision-making body. So however they choose to go, I presume, given the quality of the personnel that will go there. But as you raise that, one of the other issues that is riling the opposition leader is the fact that the President is moving with haste to have a commission appointed. And she has determined that the President is unfit to make those appointments. Who make the President unfit? Because you are disgruntled about the fact that your allegations have not been proven, or that your suspicions have not been borne out. The President must not do her job and try as quickly as possible to appoint a commission so that the commission could appoint a commissioner of police. And of course, you do what you normally do, which is not wake up in the morning to respond to the President and saying that you will not respond to the President in any consultation process as if you normally do. You won't be missed because you're never there. But those of us who want the country to progress, we know that there's no police service commission in place, and the next logical step is to move as quickly as possible to have one in place. And that's where we are. The commission will be appointed, and I said publicly already, the government, through the leader of government and business, would move with dispatch to have, once the names are in by notification, they will get on the order paper, the government will put it to the House, and the House will treat with it, and we hope that we get a commission in very short order. Thank you very much, and I'm very sorry about what happened today.
This is TTT. Live for local.
Jacob